AI and ML has been exploding recently. We all know about this, all the new Gen AI, all these things that are now evolving, becoming kind of the forefront of what businesses want to start leveraging. These are exposing businesses to additional risks, right? There's a pretty high profile incident last year where large business had a few employees upload some sensitive information to their ChatGPT. And this was patents, things that weren't public knowledge yet, source code, things of that nature. And this was now available to competition, to the public. Part of this is simply just due to people not being fully educated of the risks of some of these new applications and services that are being available, right? So how do you ensure that you can, one, as a business, continue to use and leverage modern technologies, but also educate your team or get visibility into potential vulnerabilities or gaps that these might have in your business, right? I think that's a pretty important thing to highlight here because AI is not stopping. This is kind of the new frontier. You need tools that are going to address a lot of these gaps that are essentially going to be, coming out as both from visibility, but also education. Another key part that's making data vulnerable now is also the explosion in the number of total services, right? There's lots of things that are connecting to our data today, copying it, replicating it, providing access. Things that are even automated, right? Sometimes not even humans that are getting access to this information. So how do you get a good picture of what they're doing with your data? How are they configured, right? These are all things that are increasing the overall surface area of risks and other challenges that are coming out of it. Another thing I want to highlight also is your data is now sitting in a variety of different places. Some could be in SaaS, some could be in the cloud, some could be on-prem. All of these have different security protocols and controls that you have to ensure are enforced to protect your data, right? And this is essentially adding to complexity for your security teams and ensuring that they're all, on par with each other in terms of how you secure them, right? So this is just requires more time, more effort, more manual solutions, and none of the traditional approaches that business might have implemented really do all of this comprehensively, right? Leading to potential different attack paths and ways for people to kind of get into data. And this ties into more of the obvious reasons about misconfigurations or IAM policies or how roles and privileged access is being granted. All these things are exploding and becoming very cumbersome and hard to manage, right? Trying to manage all of this on your own as a business without leveraging new solutions that are going to give you some of this key insights and context is ultimately what's leading to more of this vulnerabilities in data and the gap in which it's taking for business to address and plug some of these holes.
Yeah, and I think in a world where security talent can be hard to come by, teams tend to be playing catch up. No matter how much you invest, security teams may not be in a position to enable these systems to be safe. And ML, microservices, SaaS applications, your business needs these to be competitive. And the time is now really to get a handle on this. Understand where data is moving around in your environment, what risk it poses to the organization, and aligning your organization around data. And if you don't do that, I don't think you're really going to have a chance to keep up, and ultimately your data will be exfiltrated. SaaS in particular, in file sharing applications, convenience is the selling point of these applications, not security. And having to understand the admin console of every tool, where's data moving, how do I implement access governance? It's become an overwhelming task. Yeah, and quite often when we onboard customers to our DSPM platform, they come in with a list of data sources they're aware of. We integrate and onboard those, and we discover there are other SaaS apps running in their cloud environment. Perhaps there's been an integration set up with an S3 bucket, and they've really got to chase that down, understand where data is flowing out of their environment, and put the controls in place, and really align everyone around controls around these SaaS applications. As far as what risks there are to that data, we're really focusing on an attack path to the data, not just all of the misconfigurations in the environment and employing your team to go and fix them all. We're honing in on what puts data at risk and what's the cost of potential exposure. And that's ultimately how organizations are using DSPM to align their remediation efforts and make sure they're fixing the right things that are going to help them reduce the exposure of a potential impact, a potential breach, as well as preparing for compliance audits and putting themselves in a good position to enable the business to operate effectively. And these questions can be difficult. And that's why data breaches are almost an inevitable fact in business today. We have organizations that have focused on reducing the impact of a potential breach by deploying Normalize, a DSPM solution, getting an inventory, understanding what data they need to protect, so that if and when a breach does happen, they can be confident that the impact will be restricted, and they can really get a good handle on what was impacted. Yes, and bringing different functions within an organization together to answer these questions. You have data privacy teams, you have legal and compliance, you have your typical infosec risk management teams, and they're often motivated by different tools, signals, and ultimately everyone should be focused on protecting data, understanding who's accessing that data, and then build their programs as a framework around that. And bringing teams together, helping them collaborate, and focusing on data, I think, is the way to really turn down the noise and the alert fatigue we discussed, and finally start moving the needle on where data security and what your posture is, and reducing the impact of breach.
So our goal has always been can we provide insights for everything from discovery, classification, access management, compliance, or vulnerability across your data, no matter where it sits, right? Being that single pane of glass, I think, is a notion that we find that's super important, because look, ultimately, if we can give our customers insights holistically into where all their key information is or their key data resides, and they can funnel this to where they see in their pipeline, they're going to gain confidence of having to log into multiple different tools or solutions to kind of get those key answers, right? And how we do it is, I think, pretty straightforward. We want to connect to our customers' data where it resides without moving or copying any of it into our own environment, right? We believe that, this is the right way to go about it, so that we're not exposing customer any additional risks or privacy concerns. And in the customers' environments themselves, we're able to discover all their data, even ones they're unaware of, and classify it so we can understand better how much of it is sensitive, what's it worth, where is all of this residing, right? And be able to delineate that for our customers to really focus their priorities on. We're also able to understand kind of the lineage and similarity and duplicate data that resides there as well, right? It's just a huge thing that we see come up all the time. We have a bunch of copy data that's sitting there that I haven't been using or it's no longer needed. All these things are adding up to overall costs and surface area for attacks. And these are all things that we can surface automatically. Pretty much you're getting value the moment we deploy. This is all information that we can automatically surface to our customers, right? So we've seen that huge impact where customers are like, man, we didn't think we'd get all this right away. And this is the value of a DSPM solution like Normalize, is we have this full context, not just in one environment, but across the entire landscape of our customers. And they can also configure and tune these to fit their needs, right? Maybe they might have some custom entities or custom classifications. We're able to leverage and surface all these details as well. And this is super valuable, right? And on top of that, we're also able to understand who and what is accessing this. Is it a user? Are they getting access through a role? Is it through a different application? All these details are going to be tied into the context of the data, so they can take the appropriate actions and better understand, potentially our customers, how this data is going to be exposed, right?
And having a single view allows you to make collaborative decisions across the organization. And then once you've got a good inventory and catalog, where do you begin? What do you fix first? What do I prioritize? What's the activity level of data? And ultimately, what's the potential impact to my organization? So we focus on answering questions for any persona that's coming into the platform, whether that's an executive, a security analyst, a data privacy engineer, and being able to get to actionable data within a few clicks. Whether you're working on compliance or you really want to drill into new data that has flowed into your environment, what are the deltas? Providing users with heat maps and trend lines, and really alerting them to what is going to have an impact. I think that's what's really going to drive data risk down and ultimately reduce the impact of that potential breach.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that I've seen, Joe, then this resonates with me when I look at this dashboard. It's also something that we've heard from our customers, right? Is a lot of times the data is so siloed within the organization itself that you don't always have cross-team visibility, even cross-org visibility. So a lot of times when it comes to securing these environments, different teams are responsible for different resources. So this unified dashboard really gives security teams the confidence to kind of drill down into things that are most important to them, right? They can identify, is there like some commonality? Is there a reason that these types of data stores, there's a specific team that manages it, right? But they're able to really drill down based on the types of data that's most important, maybe by region, maybe types of data stores, and really gives them that flexibility to understand that no matter what their focus point is, we have a path to really get them down into the most granular details, right? But they can always start holistically and understand, how's my distribution look like? Is there something I'm not missing? And this is super valuable when it comes to the security solution, because this is what we build confidence with, right? This is how they can interact and understand their environments better, which is one of the biggest gaps today. Is, if all of a sudden you have a bunch of data that's in an S3 bucket that wasn't there the day before, this dashboard is going to surface it for you because it's looking at distribution as well, but also the risk and monetary value assessments are all coming in one place. And it's very easy to identify these deltas and trends, as you mentioned. And I think that's a huge value driver in terms of getting that quick information, right? Because if you have thousands of databases or data stores, how do you identify if something new or something risky has happened, right? And this kind of lets you filter through some of that noise and identify changes.
And when you
Yeah.
find data that's at risk, what do you address first? You've got to have a way to like I've said, align your organization around the data risk. Many organizations understanding the monetary value of the data based on public breaches, based on fines, you can ultimately define the quantity or the value of a single sensitive record and extrapolate that across your environment to help you prioritize and understand what data types, what data stores hold the most of my crown jewels. I need to lock those down first. And that's really how you can move the needle, like I said, because the value of data that's at a risk of potential breach, you can make an impact on that very quickly. Then focus on fixing problems at the source and aligning your organization around policies that prevent this. And this has resonated with all of our customers because they're typically focused on one data platform where they know there's something sensitive. And when they have their eyes opened to just how much data has moved around their environment, they really take a step back and rethink, okay, so what's the approach here? So, one of the things at DSPM and I'm very proud of our platform is the ability to draw out data attack paths, visualize those, help your organization connect the dots between what potentially each of these siloed tools might be telling you, attaching that data context and drawing a full risk chain. So you can understand this internet user has indirect access to my data because of an IAM, a resource configuration. There's a potential breach here. We need to lock this down. And how widespread is this? I want to alert on this and define it as a policy so that this can't happen in my environment again. I need to understand what are the various ways of addressing this. Does the data need to exist? Is it stale? Is it important to my business? Can I move it to a cold storage? Often there's a cost savings approach here as well. You're trying to reduce risk and you're realizing that I don't need to secure all this data. We don't have to manage all of this. Let's get it out of our environment and make our jobs easier. And at the same time, they're reducing their AWS bill or their storage backup costs. Least privilege is something that DSPM can really move the needle on, not just in highlighting how users are getting access to sensitive data, either through assumed roles, nested roles, default permissions when someone joins an organization. There's a lot of ways that users can gain access to sensitive data that once you know it's there, you've got to start addressing these light policies, weak policies. And this is across every platform. Every SaaS application has a different way of managing access control. Often users struggle with understanding the ways of controlling data in a particular platform. And a visual drill down really helps understand what is the change I need to go make in my access to prevent this from happening. And then I can replicate that in my environment, enforce a policy, and use a DSPM solution to give me that auditing function to make sure that there are no exceptions, which plays into both compliance as well as ultimately just reducing your data risk surface.
Yeah, and I think these access graphs are, I think, super valuable, right? We've had a few customers, Joe, we've seen some with over 400,000 users. And this is going to be very common for a lot of large enterprises as well, is there's going to be a lot of assumed roles, teams, groups, and privileges that you've established as a business. how do you understand better what these are providing access to, right? Are some even necessary? Am I giving too much access to users that aren't even taking advantage of things that we're providing, right? These all ultimately ties into minimizing surface area of attacks. Now, we've mentioned that a few times today, but I mean, this is kind of, I think the crux of the problem is if you minimize the paths that people can take to get to your valuable assets, it's going to minimize the overall impact of a breach. And if someone wants access to something in the future and you've removed it, they can ask for it. They're at least leveraging the permissions that you've provided, right? But having that full context of, who has access to what, when, and how is one of the additional pieces of information that the access graph that we provide is giving our customers, right?
I worked with a customer on securing their Snowflake deployment, and they had a role-based access control process. They had data masking policies, and they thought they were in a pretty good place until ultimately they had a way to audit those policies and those processes. And they found that, for one, they weren't being refreshed often enough. They needed an automated way to update these rules based on data that was coming into that Snowflake platform. And these big data platforms, they're incredibly powerful, but they give you a lot of flexibility. And unfortunately, there's many ways to expose data and not have a good handle on what's coming into the environment, so that you can constantly be reevaluating. So we've been able to integrate automated access revocation when data is discovered. Folks will lose access, have to request that access. If they're not using it, it automatically gets revoked after 30 days, 90 days. These are ways that you can really take your least privilege access to the next level. And you need that real-time monitoring because things are changing so quickly. And compliance, ultimately, that's what empowers your business to operate. Bring on new regions, new customers. You have to be maintaining this for their trust, as well as, of course, to remain compliant and get those certifications. What do you need to fix first? What's really putting data at risk? Because quite often, when you don't know what data you have, you're now implementing these policies across your entire organization and spending a lot of time securing data that may not even be in scope, say for PCI or GDPR. That's not sensitive. You can focus your efforts on what really matters and apply policies and business rules on the data that actually needs to be secured. And if you don't know where your data is and you don't know who has access, there's always going to be gaps in your compliance program. And like you say, the breach will be inevitable.
Is you essentially want one tool that's going to help you better understand your security posture, but not just understand it, but have the confidence that no matter where my data is sitting, I'm going to have full control or visibility at the minimum in terms of where my risks are, how my valuable data is moving, and how it's being accessed and leveraged, right? Having all of this in one place lets you then decide, do I need to integrate with these other tools to get some additional coverage or protections or policies? But at a starting point, a business should have full control of all their data and where it sits. I think that's one of the main things that we focus with Normalize, and then the DSPM solutions are going to help you kind of achieve that. The next stage is being able to monitor how this data or even your risks are moving through your environment, right? We touched on this a little bit earlier. We're able to tie things together across different environments, whether it's in SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, on-prem. All of these different data elements we can leverage to show you how this is being shared, or if there's similar objects and stuff is existing, that you always understand how data is flowing through your business. I think this is a huge driver in terms of being proactive and mitigating additional risks or potential threats, right, from internal or external sources. Monetary value, or even, more importantly, prioritizing your data based off of its worth to you, right? So how do you identify your crown jewels? This is something that we're able to provide to our customers, and it's generally something that a business should always be thinking about, right? You need to be able to quickly identify where all your sensitive data is. And if you have key information that you're unaware of, you need to be able to detect it quickly so that you can secure it with the appropriate controls. But most importantly, as we just talked about recently, is proving compliance, right? This is one of the biggest things, and this is more driven by regulations, but remaining compliant also naturally ensures that your data or your business is more secure, and you're going to mitigate overall security risks and threats long term.